This is the last section of the module 1 that will give you a generic overview of NDFC 12 before we cover deeper each functions during the next series of modules and sections. In a nutshell, NDFC offers a number of functions for classic LAN and what we call the external fabric. A classic LAN understands Nexus 9K running .1Q with or without the routing, can be operated with either a standard classic LAN fabric or starting in NDFC 12.1.3, it can be operated using what we call the enhanced classic LAN fabric template. That will be discussed in the next slide. The external fabric is used for either classic LAN, VXLAN EVPN, or WAN connectivity. However, it supports Nexus and non-Nexus devices. From the same NDFC user interface, you can operate classic LAN with or without Nexus devices in conjunction with VXLAN EVPN fabric for the data center and or for the campus. For classic LAN and for VXLAN EVPN, NDFC continuously compares the current configuration of any device with its database. If something differs, it informs the end user about an out-of-sync configuration who can push afterwards the expected configuration to retrieve the initial intent. The end user can build its own policy templates to push any specific configurations. You can automate or schedule regular backups for one or multiple classic LAN. Backups image are stored over a timeline, and you can restore the backup of choice for the whole data center networks or restore the configuration for a particular device. NDFC lets you to trigger an image software upgrade, including the patches for one or multiple switches. NDFC provides health visibility for the network components, including the link. NDFC also offers performance monitoring for the CPU, memory, temperature, and other network utilizations. And finally, NDFC is not limited to the Nexus devices, as we say, but it can manage Catalyst 9K, ASR series running iOS XE or iOS XR, or even non-Cisco network devices. In addition to all features supported and previously mentioned with the standard classic LAN and external fabric, NDFC has been designed since day one to automate VXLAN EVPN fabrics with zero-touch provisioning, including advanced features such as PBR, encryptions, MPLS handoff, or if your application are multicast greedy, maybe because your enterprise is a financial institution or is part of the media broadcast industry, you can optimize the multicast transport using the TRM feature, tenant routed multicast, and NDFC will automate its deployment based on the best practices in one click, right? So now the other thing is, starting NDFC 12.1.3, NDFC will automate the deployment of classic LAN. The good news is that this feature is currently available in the previous mode, a beta versions if you want, with the version 12.1.2e. And the good thing is you will get more details with the next modules and demos. If your infrastructure requires interconnecting multiple sites, NDFC embeds the multi-site domain fabric templates to automate the deployment of multi-site infrastructure in few clicks by adding the required fabrics and afterward the layer 2 and layer 3 network extensions in a very, very simple manner. For a single site or for multi-site, it just requires few clicks to create an overlay networks and a VRF to deploy them across the devices and attach the networks to the interfaces of interest. A data center fabric without any external layer 3 connectivity is useless. Therefore, NDFC embeds the tool and policy to automate the deployment of VRF Lite handoff, as well as for MPLS handoff for LDP or for layer 3 VPN over segment routing. And this is not only for VXLAN EVPN fabric, but now NDFC offers VRF extensions for the enhanced classic LAN as well. NDFC provides health visibility for the network components and for the endpoint, the physical host, the virtual machines, containers, OpenStack. And you can localize endpoints and show they live on the top of a timeline. So you can track down the exact time an endpoint moved from one location to another location. One concern can be about service node insertion into a VXLAN EVPN fabric, how to add a firewall or a load balancer or a virtual network functions, one arms or two arms, using PBR or inserted between two tenants. NDFC embeds an advanced wizard to automate in few clicks the insertion of service nodes into your VXLAN EVPN fabric. You can program a performance report, which can also be used as a notification to the end user via his email address, for example. You can combine all type of information together in one report. So, for example, you can view the CPU utilizations of a given switch or a set of switches. You can consolidate information of memory or just get the top 3 or top 10 interface utilizations and much more. And finally, you can automate the configuration of uplinks, port channels, VPC between the layer 2 top of rack and the leaf node that belongs to an VXLAN EVPN fabric for the data center. And this offers a single point of management. The layer 2 top of rack is seen fully integrated as part of the parent leaf nodes. Now, the first thought about VXLAN EVPN transport in the data center is to rely the fabric based on Nexus 9K, which has been dimensions and given all the features addressing the data center requirements. So the leading platform supported by NDFC is above all the Nexus 9K series running NXOS for the data center. However, if for any reason you wish to deploy VXLAN EVPN based on iOS XE, you can fully automate the deployment of a VXLAN EVPN fabric for the campus using the Cisco Catalyst 9K series switches and a dedicated fabric template used for that campus network. You can onboard only Cisco Catalyst 9K running iOS XE into this fabric. The fabric supports OSPF as the underlay protocol and BGP EVPN the overlay protocol transport. This allows NDFC to manage all the configurations of VXLAN EVPN fabrics composed of Cisco Catalyst 9K. Backing up and restoring this fabric is the same as VXLAN EVPN for data center. The reasons for that options, managing Catalyst 9K using NDFC 12, is that there are a couple of use cases. Indeed, some customers wish to interconnect the campus with the data center using VXLAN EVPN multi-site, for example, and managed by the same NDFC service, a single platform for managing both the campus and the data center interconnection. In that case, a pair of Nexus 9K running multi-site can be integrated within the campus VXLAN EVPN fabric. Another scenario simply comes with the need to automate quickly a campus aggregations with Catalyst 9K based on VXLAN EVPN. For the latter, the two fabrics, campus and data center, can be interconnected together using a firewall cluster, for example. As a result, fabrics can be managed using NDFC 12, simplifying the daily operation for the same IT organization managing the campus and the data center networks. To summarize what NDFC brings to you, it offers the tools to automate the deployment end-to-end for any type of fabrics in a few clicks, overlay networks and VRF across any fabrics. The LAN fabrics becomes also fully programmable, either using the NDFC GUI, or you can use your preferred API management tools against NDFC RESTful APIs. For any reasons, at any time, you can restore a backup configuration to one or multiple sites. You can insert firewall or load balancer devices seamlessly. And if you need to extend your network with either an external routed network or even an MPLS network that you are maybe not familiar with, feel free to leverage NDFC to automate the job for you based on the Cisco best practices. When end-to-end provisioning is achieved, you can count on NDFC to monitor and notify in real time the health of the fabric, not only for the network components, but for the compute stack as well. You can search for an endpoint location for its historical availability over a timeline. You can trigger alarms and report based on your expected threshold values. You can integrate NDFC with third-party applications such as ServiceNow, Splunk, or Infoblox for IP address management, for example. NDFC verifies constantly that the active configuration of any known device in its database is in sync with the end user intent. It can also be the framework to support flow streaming telemetry using the Nexus Dashboard Insight service, image and upgrade management, or RMA with zero downtime. And finally, different user profiles allow different actions with the advanced airbag support. Now let's have a quick view of the Nexus Dashboard platform called OneView, that before we go into the NDFC user interface. The first page you will see when you log into the Nexus Dashboard cluster is the OneView. This page provides information about the current Nexus Dashboard cluster status, the sites, and the services. Here you can have a single place for status overview of the entire cluster for the dashboard users. You can also view from the same pane of glass all sites from other Nexus Dashboard clusters in case of multi-cluster connectivities. Let's have a short demo that discusses about the Nexus Dashboard OneView. One of the particularities with the Nexus Dashboard is that you can manage multiple Nexus Dashboard services from the same view, the OneView. And currently in this OneView, I can see 4 sites managed by my Nexus Dashboard. However, I can manage multiple sites from other controllers using the same OneView. I just need to open the admin console and select the site menu. And from there, I can add another site from which I can select if I want to add an ACI controller or Cloud ACI or DCNM or NDFC controller. I provide the reachability information as well as the credentials for the management of the other Nexus Dashboard. And now I can select the site that I want to add into my Nexus Dashboard OneView. For example, I select these 3 sites and I do a save. This Nexus Dashboard is going to communicate with the other Nexus Dashboard and provide the status of the new sites. So now I can return to the OneView and I can pin the new sites into my world map and save. So now I can move the pointer over one of the sites to get the information of the site. I can launch the site itself, or I can expand the view to get additional information about the Nexus Dashboard. So this being said, I can now launch one of the sites. So here we can see the 4 sites managed by the other Nexus Dashboard, and I can go to the topology and I can manage any of the fabrics, go to detailed views, and so on and so forth. As a consequence from my Nexus Dashboard OneView, I can now operate multiple sites from other Nexus Dashboard platforms. Okay, let's start with the admin functions before looking at the fabric and network automations. The administration tab is used to manage the NDFC appliance, the parameters, backup, licensing, the user control access, as well as the events and credentials management. This is a quick view of the NDFC admin tab. The NDFC setting tabs combines almost all parameters that comes with the default values From the NDFC setting menu, you can set the parameters that are populated as default values. From here, you can manage the alarms, the events report, interval timing, saving the switch configuration, automatic role attributions, LLDP, performance monitoring, SSH, VMM or SNMP timers, the admin access connectivity, or the SMTP settings. With NDFC 12, you can create security domains in the Nexus dashboard cluster and map then with the user roles for NDFC. A user can have different roles on different security domains. And the third point is manage licensing for NDFC as well as for all the switches. Regarding the enhanced airbag, a user can have different roles associated to a specific security domain. A security domain represents one or a set of multiple fabrics. In this first scenario, the user global is network admin for all the fabrics that belong to both security domains, Sophia and Antipolis. In the second scenario, the user Sophia is network stager for all fabrics that belong to the security domain Sophia. This means that he can change configuration, but he cannot deploy those changes toward the switches. However, he has no access to all of the other fabrics that belong to the security domain Antipolis. In this third scenario, the user Sophia Antipolis is a network operator for the security domain Sophia and is a network admin for the security domain Antipolis. You can view the existing NDFC licenses and assign licenses. NDFC displays the total number of licenses to purchase and the total number of licenses expiring. With smart licenses, you have a complete view of your software assets. You can use the smart licensing feature to manage licenses at the device level and renew them if required. Smart licensing is a flexible licensing model that provides you with an easier and faster way to purchase and manage software across the Cisco portfolio and across your organizations. If the switch is pre-configured with a smart license, the Nexus dashboard fabric controller validates and assigns a switch smart license automatically. If needed, and if you are the smart account administrator, you can convert a classic license to a smart license using the self-service methods. Let's have a quick overview of the NDFC user interface. This is the NDFC 12.1.1 user interface. From the left sidebar menu, you can select the dashboard tab, and from the overview tab, you can see a series of tiles showing a series of charts that summarize the status of your fabric and different components. The two other tabs provide details for endpoint locators as well as for virtual machines. The additional tabs appears here according to the NDFC features that you have been enabled at the beginning. More precisely, the dashboard gives you an overview of many different areas where you want to monitor in one single pane of glass, such as the fabric or the switch health, event analytics, switch configuration status, as well as the reports you previously created, the hardware and software versions. By default, you get this overview windows. However, any new features enabled will appear under the dashboard page to display the information related to the service, such as the result of the endpoint locator, the details of the virtual machines or the Kubernetes pods or the OpenStack machines. And finally, maybe a virtual work across the options may help better to capture the different options provided in this dashboard menu. So this is the dashboard window. The functional view of the dashboard from the overview page consists of 7 dynamic dashlets that display information in the context of the selected scope, such as fabric health, event analytics, switch configuration, and more. If you look at the first graph, there are two critical alarms related to the health of the fabric. When you click on the alarm, you get the list of fabrics with their health status. You can select the first critical fabric, the MSD fabric, to get the summary related to the fabric with the child members, the switch configuration, switch health. You can go further if you expand this windows that calls the fabric overview, and from which you can retrieve the critical alarms, such as here a mismatch configuration on the VRF name. Return to the dashboard. You have a summary of the event analytics with here 46 alarms. You can review the critical ones and add a filter if you need. Here you can see a critical alarm related to the endpoint locator, mentioning that the root reflector is disconnected. What that means is that you no longer have the status of your endpoints. Back to the dashboard, you can quickly view if all switches are in sync with NDFC or if some are out of sync, like here. And you can preview the out of sync root cause and even deploy if you need. You can see the health of all switches as well and which switch roles have been allocated across different nodes, as well as the hardware and software versions through all your fabrics. In addition to the dashlet, you can quickly view the reports you have created previously. In this example, you can retrieve the reports we generated with the image upgrade. And finally, from the dashboard menu, in addition to the overview windows, different tabs options will appear based on the features you enabled, displaying the information to view the result of the endpoint locators, the details of the virtual machines, or the Kubernetes boards. Now let's have a quick overview of the NDFC user interface. From the default topology, you can view all the data centers from a single pane of glass, and from here you can select the fabric of interest, either a single fabric or a multi-site domain. You can explore the fabrics that belong to the multi-site domain. This topology shows the combinations of multiple fabrics in one single pane of glass with here a classic LAN, a VXLAN EVPN fabric, the multi-site domain, the external fabric that depicts the intersite networks and the WAN. You can look at the VRF and the networks, how many overlay networks and VRF have been deployed and where they have been attached. Again, here, this is your multi-site domain, meaning inside the MSD fabric. You can run a quick search to retrieve any components within the topology. For example, here, the border gateways highlighted in green. You can explore a particular fabric if you want. You can either select the operation view or the configuration view to get the appropriate status. In addition to the physical link, you can view all the logical network links, such as the BGP establishment between two BGP routers, or you can get the underlying network status between two devices, such as OSPF or ISIS. From the action drop-down menu, you can apply several actions, such as edit the fabric settings, add a new switch, recalculate and deploy. You can expand the action menu to run a backup, a restore, OAM, and more. And more importantly, you can now call the detailed view from the action menu. And that brings a windows with all key components to view and edit, distributed across multiple tabs, such as the switches, the links, interface, policies, networks, VRF, services, analysis, and including the history and the metrics. When you select the topology tab, you have the accurate view of your fabric with all devices, network gears, and computers with the connectivities between them. All devices and links are displayed with different colors. There are two topology views, the operation view and the configuration view. This view depicts the color coding of the operation. You expect to see all the nodes in green because that means that they are all in good health and functioning as expected. But some may be blue. That means that they are in a warning state, maybe the memory or the CPU that reached the warning threshold. You will have to look after the concerned devices when possible. Yellow means that the element has a minor issue. Orange means that the element has a major issue. It is then recommended to look at the details to mitigate risks for any further problems. And if it is red, that means that the device is facing a server issue, right? Then it requires an immediate action to troubleshoot the issue. And if it is gray, it means that NDFC doesn't have enough information to monitor that device. This is the case if you added a router that belongs to different teams and you don't have the right credentials, for example. The other topology view option is for the configuration status. Green means that the current configuration of all the switches is in sync with the intended configuration from NDFC. Blue means that the switch is waiting for the deployment. It is in a pending state. During the deployment of the configurations, the device appears yellow until the configuration is completed. If it is red, that means that the running configuration of the device is different from the one expected by NDFC. Then the device is known as out of sync. You will need to deploy the configuration to bring the device to green color. And if it is gray, it means that the device does not support config sync recalculations, maybe because the credentials are wrong or maybe because it is not a manageable device. So to summarize, we have seen that Cisco offers two main cloud networking solutions with SCI or with VXLAN EVPN standalone, and each responds to specific enterprise expectations. One of the solutions relies on standalone NXOS with NDFC as its network management platform. And NDFC is the management service platform that centralizes the network operations to automate the deployment for classic LAN, for VXLAN EVPN, for the networks VRFs, and for service nodes just in few clicks. And NDFC offers all the embedded daily operation tools that you need. To summarize, some customers want to leverage their experiences and to use proven methodology to manage their infrastructure with a network-centric approach. And DFC allows you to centralize the automation for the daily operation from day zero and day one. Here is an optional short technical overview of VXLAN EVPN that you will get directly from YouTube. And finally, before we go into the foundation of NDFC, we have seen a very high level overview of these solutions. Now, let's go into the different modules and sections to better understand and visualize the added value of NDFC.